Before I get into it, I just want to shout out Tommy for hitting me up after I chucked a video of mine up on Reddit. It was the first time I'd had a Reddit DM, and thank God I checked it because this is the first game I've been allowed access to early, right from the devs. And since then, his communication with me has been incredibly on point. I've worked with good and bad community managers and developers from esports, so to be treated like this well is an excellent sign for the game as a whole. Anyway, let's talk about Sea of Survivors. This video will keep the structure of the other videos I've done for survivor likes that you see on screen, although this time it'll be a little bit different given how early in development that this game is. Sea of Survivors is a bullet heaven / survivor like, whatever you want to go for, with a high seas pirate theme, and it's the first that I've seen take this approach. All the weapons, enemies, and power-ups match that theme and match it well from what I've played. But I have to preface this video with the fact that this game is in very early stages of development, meaning there isn't much content to talk about. I can only really talk about the foundations that the developers have laid and where it can go from there, so let's start with that. Sea of Survivors' ultimate goal is to survive a timed stage, a game loop that you'll be very familiar with by now. It gets progressively harder as time goes on, and it's on you to build your ship out to the best of your ability to deal damage and survive. I'm a huge fan of the upgrade system within a run, but I'll get to that later. For now, the ultimate goal within the build that I've played is essentially to test the fundamental gameplay, which means there's no meta progression, no quests, achievements, or any other goal to go for, which doesn't leave me with anything to talk about more when it comes to the game's goals. Rest assured, however, that meta progression and all the other good things that come with goals and achievements and things are coming in the future, but for now, we're just testing out the game. When it comes to the movement and aim mechanics, in the other survivor-like videos I've done, I've been kind of either here or there for the most part about movement and aim mechanics, but this time round, I'm a lot more critical of what Sea of Survivors offers. I want to preface this by saying that the movement and aiming mechanics are my only big gripe with this game. The rest of what the game has to offer is either good or great, but allow me to criticize what exists just for the moment. The movement and control of your ship in Sea of Survivors does not feel good at the moment. It's janky, unreliable, unsatisfying, and frustrating, and from what I can tell, most of that comes from where the movement axis on the ship is, and that's on top of movement that doesn't feel like it has any weight or momentum behind it. This system makes it hard for me to have proper agency over my movement, meaning a lot of deaths are out of frustration rather than lack of skill. On a similar note, the aimed abilities for the moment are also not super reliant, but the other power-ups and weapons make up for that for now. While I will criticize the movement in the game, as I said, it's my biggest negative and everything else is mostly positive, so let's move on to that stuff. Combat is overall weighed down by the things I spoke about, but Sea of Survivors is one of those games that as soon as it gets going and as soon as all the upgrades you've collected come together, the full potential of the game is shown, and what excites me is how combat like this is only just the beginning. One of the reasons I have so much hope for the way this game will turn out is the robust upgrade system within a run. Essentially, you can get 4 weapons and then link other upgrades to those weapons, and once it's all linked, the effects are multiplied, making this one of the most satisfying upgrade systems I've played with in any survivor-like. I cannot get over the potential for a system like this and how incredibly it will feel with more weapons and power-ups added to increase variety. Oh, and of course they already have upgrades in the game that double adjacent effects, which already leads to a lot of chaos. Sound design and effects are good, they work, and there is visual distinction within combat, which, as we've discussed before, is incredibly important. I also think that you can do a lot with the visuals and animations to make them even more grandiose, but it's early, so we'll have to wait and see what they actually do with them, but for now, they work, they're pretty good, and I like looking at them. I think progression in a run is incredibly solid, especially after they took feedback that the early game was unreliable, and then went and completely changed how fast the start of the run was, which is a great sign, by the way. And as I said, no meta progression or anything else to get through at the moment, so I can only really speculate as to what could be added. Meta progression can be done in so many different ways, and different things will fit for different games. For Sea of Survivors, I think upgrades to increase weapon viability would be nice, upgrades to give you permanent starting bonuses, or a system that allows you to kind of choose what build you would ideally like in the next run. There are so many possibilities here, and I'm sure they'll capitalize on the ones they choose to go for. When it comes to negatives, obviously I've already spoken about the movement, so no need to repeat, and you know what? Fuck it. I had some things written down for negatives, but for a game this early in early access, I genuinely don't care about them. They're going to be ironed out eventually, so rather than harp on all those things that will get fixed, what I'll say is this. From Tommy's great communication, an active Discord, and an update that genuinely addressed player feedback, all I've seen so far from Sea of Survivors is potential. Please go and wishlist it, because I don't know if you're going to get another pirate survivor-like this one, and I can't emphasize how good the linking upgrade system is, so things like that really emphasize the amount of potential that this game has, and to have that backed up by great developer communication, it's all just great signs. This video might have been pretty short, but that's because this game is so early, there's just not much to talk about. But from what I've seen, again, there's just a lot of potential here, and I'm hoping that they capitalize on all of it. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I will see you later.